Councillor Chris Vince, the leader of Harlow Labour, is there anything to applaud at all in the recent statements by Rishi Sunak and the Conservative Party on their battling against crime / antisocial behaviour?
But clearly we want to tackle crime. We know that there's been an increase in crime across Essex. We know there's issues in Harlow of antisocial behaviour, and obviously any steps to do that are welcome. But I think it's a little bit like someone robbing a bank, getting away with the loot, bringing the loot back and then expecting the reward for it. A lot of the issues we face in Harlow and across Essex at the moment are down to 13 years of cuts to policing, and only now 13 years after the Tories came to power are we starting to see those numbers get back to where they need to be. And my biggest concern on that is it's all well and good replacing the officers you've got rid of, but we've had 13 years of not enough police in communities, working with communities, and a lot of that trust has been lost. A lot of that expertise has been lost. So this is really sticking past the politics, but we've got a bigger issue there that I think has been caused by just not having those police officers available for so long.
So when you hear about record numbers in Essex Police, do you look around Harlow and go, where are they?
Well, look, I think they're not record numbers. They're getting back to the numbers they had in 2010, which should be welcomed. But as I say, this is 13 years after they came to power. We know a lot of things in policing have changed. We know in Harlow the population has got a lot larger, and again, there's 13 years of communities not having that policing. So all that intelligence has been lost. So actually, they've got to work a lot harder to be tackling these issues. And we also know that actually, and I recognise the importance of paperwork and writing out reports, etc. But we know now that to actually get a conviction and actually to get it to court because of the issues with the courts as well, they have to have watertight cases. The amount of casework, the amount of paperwork they have to do is becoming more and more. So you're seeing more and more officers having to spend time dealing with that side of things and not able to get out in communities.
So your sympathy is with the Chief Inspector of the West Essex, Paul Austin, and his team. You're not getting at them, it's the system. Absolutely,
and I'll always say, I'm not saying every police officer is perfect. It's a big organisation, but I speak to Paul and I speak to other police officers in the town, and I think the ethos for policing across Harlow is excellent, and they generally want to make a positive difference and to catch criminals and ensure that our community is safe. But I think that they are doing it with one arm tied behind their back. I hope that the increase in numbers that we're talking about will benefit them, but in the meantime they've got to train up these officers, and they haven't got the experience that some of the officers that have left had.
But you must applaud some of the Conservatives, and Robert Halfon said they've got a special plan for Harlow regarding antisocial behaviour, littering, nitrous oxide. You must applaud that, surely.
Well, the nitrous oxide is obviously an issue, but I think there's a far wider issue of substance abuse that we need to tackle. I think the other thing to mention on Harlow, and I'm sure this applies in other places, but from my background working in the charity sector, I know this to be true. The other issue you've got is a lot of police officers dealing with issues that perhaps wouldn't have traditionally been the work of police officers, and that again comes down to austerity and cuts to services. We know that mental health provision isn't where it needs to be. Police officers are having to deal more and more with that. I spoke to a police officer the other day, was saying that when police when the Conservatives came in, they actually cut PCSOs by half across this town. So all that intel, all that community intelligence has been lost. So it's good to hear they're doing something, but it's 13 years too late.
But you're in a position, here we are in 2023, you're fighting local elections on May the 4th, general election may well be this year, probably next year. People want to hear answers from you in whatever role you're playing. So therefore, what do you think that there's a distinct difference between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party in governance, in opposition, or whatever?
Absolutely, and I think it's notable that Keir Starmer, our leader, our national leader, has made this one of his key 5 missions. Dealing with crime and protecting communities is something that we want to be really tough on. It's the old adage, the old Labour line, I know, tough on crime, tough on causes of crime, but part of that is about being proactive, something that I've always believed very passionately. As you know, when I stood to be Police and Crime Commissioner, I said about the importance of working with schools, working with community groups to actually tackle the root causes of the time, and that comes down to getting into community. So one of the pledges that Labour have made is invest in 13,000 neighbourhood and PCSOs to actually get into those communities. However, I recognise, and as I said before, we've had 13 years of not enough police in those communities, so you need to rebuild those links, rebuild that trust. And I have to pay tribute to my councillors in Harlow, Laney Shears, James Griggs, who've been working with the police in their communities to engage with the public to try and bring back some of that trust. And that's not trust in individual police officers, but it's a trust, as you said, in the system system in the fact that if you report a crime, is it going to be dealt with? And unfortunately, because of these cuts, because of the lack of resources that police officers have had, and it's not just person resources, it's other things as well, and they haven't been able to do that.
And finally, you mentioned the councillors going down grassroots. So Labour councillors were at the Essex Skipper, along with the police, in the Stowe, and that's all part of the sort of problem-solving challenges that you want to confront.
All councillors of all political colours, but I can only speak for the Labour councillors, obviously, got into politics generally to make a difference to their community. And in the two councillors I've mentioned, Councillor Watson was also there, Councillor Dunn was also there. These are councillors that are rooted in their communities and want to support their communities. And it's like you say, we find out what the problems are, and we find ways to solve them. And part of that is obviously working with different departments, including the police department, to actually tackle those issues. And as I say, it was a really positive meeting. It wasn't about blame, it was about looking at solutions, recognise the problems, and looking at how we can work together to solve those problems.